With most of the world's freight carried by water, safe and prompt arrival of shipments depends on the waters of the world being connected, as for instance by the Panama and Suez canals. It also depends on these links being kept clear. Linking the North Sea and the Baltic is the Noord-Oostzee Canal, more popularly called the Kiel Canal. It was built back in the 19th century. It is 110 kilometers long and plays a major and increasing role in Baltic trade. It is thus a very busy canal, used by the merchant navies of many nations, of vital economic and strategic interest to many. On the 11th of July 2002 at Hoogdon, 19 kilometers east of Brunsbüttel, a collision occurs between a push barge and a coaster loaded with 2,400 tons of scrap, the Uno. According to eyewitnesses, the Uno capsizes almost immediately. Its 54-year-old engineer is missing. Local authorities quickly decide to instruct the Dutch-German Uno Salvage Bugsier consortium to recover the vessel. Uno Salvage and Bugsier have worked successfully together in the past. A two-phase salvage plan is devised. The ship will firstly be righted and then floated. But first, before any further work can be done, the cargo must be removed. A small mobile crane is firstly fitted with an extendable tool to move the cargo of scrap underwater to one side of the ship. A grab then picks it up and loads it onto a flatbed barge for disposal. It is a slow, tedious, and remarkably difficult way of removing 2,500 tons of scrap. Meanwhile, the salvage crew have things to do. Salvors carry many responsibilities, including the property to be salvaged and the environment. With a flexible organization and network of joint ventures and agents throughout the world, Weissmuller teams are well trained, experienced, and have a vast inventory of specialist equipment for optimum performance. Just as here with Bugsier of Hamburg. One of the first important tasks is getting hoist cables underneath the ship's hull to enable the cranes to get to work. This is done with a so-called jet injector, as salvage master Kees van der Mond explains. With compressed air and water jets, the injector is what we use to go under the ship. A light line is attached, then pull cables, and finally the hoist cable. This is then attached to the parbuckling hook. The work is carried out by a diver. The jet injector is forced under the ship meter by meter, a colleague diver following progress above water. We know the job is successful when air bubbles rise from the other side of the ship. Now, a heavier pull cable is attached and is pulled back through under the ship. Now, more substantial steel cables are attached. First a lighter one, and then a heavier one. The steel cable is now attached to the hoist cable, which in turn is pulled back under the ship. A 2-inch hoist sling is locked fast in a 150-ton shackle and placed at the Uno's side, ready for the hoisting operation. And all this has to be repeated for each of the 4 lifting slings. The second shear legs, the ANAC, arrives 2 days prior to the hoisting operation. This can lift 600 tons over 2 blocks of 300 tons each. The salvage and shear legs crews work closely together to attach the many hoist cables. The cables are attached to the parbuckling hooks one by one. The preparations require time, as everything must be checked and double-checked. The salvage crew cannot permit any mistakes. Men, equipment and reputations are all being put to the test. The third hoisting cable is pulled through under the ship with the help of the Bugsier 12 tug. The weather is deteriorating, but work progresses. Each day the authorities inquire as to when lifting can commence. The wreck is causing congestion, which must be solved as quickly as possible. It is day 5, and everything is ready for action. The slings have been inserted under the coaster, and the parbuckling hooks have been prepared. The second Roland shear legs is now ordered to maneuver into its lifting position.
Is die Kette tight?
The crane hooks are lowered simultaneously to permit exact positioning of the shear legs. The crew of Uno Salvage enter the capsized ship to help the crew of the Bugsier moor the shear legs. The crews work together closely. They are equally motivated to see the operation successful. Once the shear legs is in position, the crew puts the lifting slings into the hooks. Work that takes a lot of manpower. The Roland has a lifting capacity of 500 tons, 250 tons per hook. After they have been locked in, the hooks are raised to tension the lifting slings. Now it is the ANAC's turn. The ANAC is maneuvered into position. This shear legs is self-propelled and can maneuver without the help of the tugs. Everything is checked yet again, and the lifting operation is ready. The cables are again locked in and tensioned. Nothing is being left to chance. The next day will be the big day. It is 6 o'clock in the morning. Bugsier and Uno Salvage's crew discuss last details. Everyone waits for the signal to start lifting.
Der ANAC trimmt jetzt noch vor.
The ANAC's now been trimmed. Each hook is under 50 tons tension. All that's left is for the ANAC to finish her trimming and lifting can start. The signal is given. The Roland's captain gives the order to hoist. Though slowly, the ship immediately starts to move. First to the surface is the wheelhouse. The authorities also keep a close eye on progress. They are there for such things as protecting the environment and ensuring through shipping traffic is guided carefully past the wreck. Air starts to escape from various locations in the hull. Keen eyes check whether any oil is coming with it. After about 2 hours, the ship lies practically horizontal on the surface, though still largely under it. To limit possible oil pollution to a minimum, floating booms are placed around the wreck. Sheets of special oil absorbent are also spread, and more are ready. The Uno Salvage and Bugsier crews are well aware of the importance of protecting the environment. Divers are guided to possibly leaking pipes with the help of vessel construction plans. The vents are closed with the help of waterproof canvas closures. Quick and effective. Meanwhile, port authorities search for clues which could cast light on the cause of the accident. The ship is now upright and stable. The last scrap must be removed before temporary hull repair and hoisting can begin. Now, divers measure up the hole in the ship's hull. This will allow production of the so-called patch. The plate, which will temporarily seal the hole.
Die sind also gut vorangeschritten. Heute Mittag wird die Patsche verladen auf Lastwagen und dann.
I've ordered the patch. It will be brought in 2 sections from the yard to the quayside here and welded together. Then the rubber installed. We will then install it on site, maybe this evening or tomorrow morning. The hoisting operation draws the usual attention from nearby residents and visitors. The patch is 7 by 5.5 meters and heavy. To prevent flexing, it is reinforced with so-called angle bars. On its inside edges is glued a continuous 2 centimeter thick, 50 centimeter wide sheet of rubber to ensure the patch is relatively watertight. This whole assembly will be placed over the hole in the hull. It will then be attached to the hull with a Cox submarine gun, a tool to shoot steel bolts through thick steel plate. These are inserted about every 20 centimeters. Thus will the hull be temporarily sealed. The divers now place halters over the ship's side to hang the patch in the correct position. This is done in such a way that the patch can no longer move while being attached to the ship's hull. It means that passing traffic will not move the patch while attaching it in position. Once the patch is positioned on the hull, the crane is locked and all further movement on board forbidden. This protects the divers operating the Cox gun.
Oké, Jan, Alex heeft hem al ingesloten.
The Cox submarine gun is an English invention which has been used for many years for salvage operations and such like. It is an explosive gun designed to drive screwed bolts into steel plates. It consists of a holder and a barrel in which the screwed bolts are placed. These come in different sizes for different types and thicknesses of plate. The Cox gun has been adapted and improved by the salvage industry. It attaches objects quickly and accurately, underwater and in difficult conditions. It is able to save many hours of drilling and tapping. A demonstration clearly shows what happens underwater when piercing a 12mm ship's shell. After the bolt is inserted, a plate with nut is attached. The two-man diving team in a cage works underwater with the coxgun. Visibility is appalling, and it's a curiously delicate job. It's also tough and tiresome. In the meantime, 2 underwater pumps are prepared to be hung in the Uno's hold. With a capacity of 1,000 cubic meters an hour, they should pump the hold dry fairly quickly. This will help lifting. The pumps are in position and have been tested. Lifting begins. The hatch coaming must of course be above water before the pumps can be started up. As usual, the question everyone asks is, will everything go as planned? The cranes now take full tension. It is they that do the heavy work, helped of course by the pumps as soon as the hatch coaming is above water. The hatch coaming rises above the water surface. The signal to start pumping is given. The pumps ensure the vessel can float. The cranes provide stability. Pumping at some 2,000 cubic meters an hour, the ship slowly but clearly rises out of the water. Everything is constantly checked. Uno Salvage specialists are on the job year-round and regularly receive training in both traditional and new skills. Firefighting and handling gas, chemicals, oil products and other hazardous cargoes are high priorities. Here, the danger is oil release. Preventing pollution, a risk in any shipping incident, is today an important aspect of salvage work. The patch is now visible, and the way it was attached. It is clear how much the divers had to do underwater. The hole from the inside clearly shows it was big enough to capsize the vessel very quickly. It is also clear that the cargo has almost been entirely removed. The inspection crew enters the ship to review the situation. They check the accommodation, the engine room, and the fuel and storage tanks. During the inspection, the body of the missing engineer is found in one of the cabins. The interior is chaotic. It is a place of tragedy. The ship is now in stable condition. The pumps and salvage crew have done their work. Weissmüller's salvage equipment is designed for reliability and use in many situations. Much is suitable to be airlifted across the world. Salvage means risks, and thus professional risk management. Human lives, ships, equipment, cargo, and the environment are all top priorities that allow no compromises and no mistakes. The shear legs are released when the Uno is shown to be floating free. She will be towed to Brunsbüttel for transfer to German authorities. A sad event for a vessel and crew, but a successful end to a salvage.